You guys know me as Justin Gutierrez. I'm here to talk with you guys about three subjects related to a trapping mechanism used by the local, not methamphetamine users, but say the abusers that ended up in the lower end of the reams, like the house hoppers and the honey potters. This is some of their mechanisms that I call the trapping mechanisms. We're going to start off with social implication. So, specifically, social implication is an encompassing phrase I coined to help describe the force that compels a trend to impose itself in random but highly relatable ways based, say, for example, solely on a color associated with that trend, statistic, or frequency acknowledged by society or an individual. Say one wears a color and he is later profiled. Well, if you were that person, you could blame it on social implication, because not just is it suspicious, leading to society to intervene, but this individual would, for as long as society relates him to the color alone, he might then not live the life of the color, but the life of that color is then still imposed on aspects of his life with no clear definition as to why or how these things or behaviors would even relate, other than, say, in the subject's bias or and interpersonal truths and the frequencies that describe them. Well, in short, I would say social implication is the term I coined to refer to the nature that compels a stigma or potential to intrude on one's life and imply its relevance in the individual's life, despite the subject's only being relatable by a small detail, like the color of an individual's socks. Second, we've got hypervigilance. This is an example to get into circumlocution, which would be the third subject. Let's go with hypervigilance. It can be used as an example to understand how one might be able to create delusional patterns in one or another person by instilling trigger words using a thing called circumlocution. As for this example, hypervigilance will often cause repetitious behaviors reinforced by paranoid thinking, intrusive thoughts, or delusion, and as the fits continue and begin to become more exacerbated, the evermore the behaviors become reinforced as proper. The stronger the hallucination, the stronger the reinforcement. I'd like to say, I guess. The stronger the hallucination, the stronger the reinforcement. So if we are to say take a social drug and were to give someone a rock that I had associated with a negative context by pulling it out in the midst of said negative conversation, then creating trauma through cutting off a process of consolidation called verbal communication, well, I'd have what would be considered a seated object. This object, the drug, the subject of the conversation, and all personalized, like, resonance, anything personalized with at that time, etc., become a great threat, as they are all now potential triggers, and every time the subject content is experienced in the individual's life at any degree, it can greater exacerbate the implicable behavior, the symptoms, and or greater reinforce the triggers. Now we got circumlocution here. Circumlocution. This fits in because it is a long time manipulation tactic used for attention, but is now used to either exhaust and evaluate or exhaust and seed through a hypnagogic state caused by mental fatigue induced by the trap receiver or social virus, etc. Now, with all this said, they're supposed to round up into you know, ways I'm supposed to be teaching people about, you know, the dangers of the drug world, the real dangers, not necessarily the drugs themselves, but, you know, the things you actually have to defend yourself against. You got to defend your family, you got to defend yourself, you got to defend everything you take care of. And it's not against physical threat, it's not against physical violence most of the time. It's literally resources being stolen through false aspirations, pretenses, or just, you know, wooing the other person, especially with the social drug involved. Social drug can take any situation and just make it a fucking happy, playful thing, and the individual will get swamped with the playful and won't acknowledge any of the bad, and yada yada, so on and so forth. Then that person gets trapped, yada yada, their resources disappear one day, their family disappears one day, yada yada, boom. It's more in depth, and it applies it applies itself in very, very loose ways and very stringent ways. You know, because we are talking about using circumlocution and stuff to manipulate individuals, right? The original manipulation tactic through sociopathy or sociopaths. Not sociopathy, but sociopaths, you know. Anyways, so we're talking about that original mechanism of manipulation when it comes to verbal communication. And then we're talking about kind of reverse engineering hypervigilance and combining it with circumlocution. And, you know, you have yourself a fucking weapon. I've created a model of what could be considered a social weapon. And all the individuals that were in that lifestyle, that were using mechanisms, trapping mechanisms, they were unaware of what they were doing. They all are. But on top of that, whenever they did become aware, few of them, because I was talking about my studies, well, it seemed that they tried to take and manipulate it, and bad idea. So I mean, this could get pretty interesting. I don't know, this is a delve back into, you know, the traumas I had to deal with, facing that world, and, you know, studying it and interacting with the people. So it could get pretty interesting. I don't know. I'm like walking backwards, blacked out the previous night, blind, trying to find my way back to my car. You know, that's basically what I'm doing, because I was in full, like, I was a mess, a chaotic mess of delusion. I wasn't, you know, I wasn't fucking up or anything, really, but, you know, I talked to a lot of, you know, dope heads and stuff like that, and it had loaded my mind up so much with just crap. And it had me delusional as fuck. And it happens to a lot of people, and it's not necessarily the drugs. it's the trip setting. It's the set and setting. Really. And in the end, these people still have to be taken and held accountable for their actions. I don't condone any drug user to sit there and just fucking leech resources off of people using love and all that shit as their goddamn context of going about it. It's awful. It's awful. And now this became like a personal jabber. Well, all this is going on YouTube, so no edits, right? I mean, in the future I might edit, but like right now I'm just doing a one run. You know, hope you guys are having a fucking great morning, because I am. Sorry for the cussing. Apologies all around. And apologies for my terrible ass fucking reading. It's monotone as fuck. And I'm reading off of like just this note that I've been adding on to over the past day, because I finally looked at my board. That's supposed to be my resolve to the human condition and the whole fucking trapping equation. Like, I made an equation to fucking, you know, be able to kind of peer in to see how devastated somebody is by, you know, being trapped through delusion and stuff like that. So I had looked at that, and I had looked at it in forever. I wrote on it once, filled up the goddamn thing, and then didn't really look at it at all. Came out of my delusion and came out of everything stabilized, and, you know, I took a look at it. I was like, you know what? I need to think about this shit. I need to consolidate it. So that's what I'm doing. And it's like, you know, walking through a fog of memory. So I don't even know what I'm supposed to be saying. But I'll figure it out. Come on for the ride. Stay happy, stay healthy, and remember, don't keep the objects that they give you. If you purchase it, that is different. Do not take the objects. Cool. Have a good morning.